But nonetheless, I thought, it was a very newsworthy week in the world of wrestling. And we got to get into the top two stories right off the bat. I mean, obviously, Money in the Bank was a very newsworthy show. Got to talk about Raw, a lot to discuss there. NXT and all this other shit. Even SmackDown from last week was a good show. But we got not one, but two major potential signings. Got to throw that word potential in there because these are not confirmed. These aren't set in stone. Time will tell as far as where these people end up. But not only is CM Punk potentially returning to the ring per Fightful, but Daniel Bryan per Bodyslam.net could be headed to AEW and very likely is already signed to a deal. And this news broke in the same day, no less, on Wednesday. So when you hear those two names, Mr. Marceau, two of the biggest names in the world of wrestling from the early 2000s, not 2000s, 2010s, two of the biggest stars of that decade, what are your immediate thoughts? I mean, obviously they might make some sort of splash in AEW. And we've talked extensively before about how many people can they actually sign. And obviously this is me being biased, being a big fan of both guys. But I think that would be absolutely fucking huge for AEW. And I've told you before, of all the people they've released so far this year, there's only a handful I would have picked out and actually picked up. Like from the most recent set of releases from like NXT and 205 Live, I don't think I would break the bank for friggin' Arya Daivari or the Bollywood Boys or Tony Nese or something like that. But the rest of these people I think are fair game, like an Aleister Black who they picked up. They got Andrade. And now Daniel Bryan and potentially even CM Punk could be on their way to AEW. So give me your thoughts. We haven't really discussed this much at all about these two potential big signings for AEW.
No, I saw that Bryan reportedly signed. I think for them that's a great get. Hopefully, I think I saw a report that was saying he basically wanted to go there so he could work at New Japan. So I think for them, with having that working relationship, it's a perfect opportunity for him. I mean, he's still somewhat in his prime. I mean, he was in the ring recently. His schedule has slowed down a little bit the last couple of years, but I mean, he's also a big get right off WWTV. He's very well known. So I think he's great. And I mean, Punk hasn't wrestled in, you would know better than me, 7-8 years now.
7 years now, yeah, since the Rumble of 2014.
The non-Punk fan knowing CM Punk knowledge here.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. I was like, was it 2014? But yeah, so 2014, so it's been 7 years. I mean, it's obviously going to be a big get at first. I'm wondering if he does sign there, like how he's going to look. And obviously, it's a big get. I mean, I think if I was AEW or I was Tony Khan, I literally would have backed up the Brinks truck immediately, right, when the company started to get him in there.
I think they tried. I think it just fell through because for whatever reason.
Well, allegedly he wasn't happy the way that they approached him. I was like kind of like the rumor when he originally started. They like sent him a text like, "Hey, you're interested in coming to the company?" Like,
I think that was honestly, to be completely honest, I don't work there, but I think that was more of a Cody Bucks issue than it was a Tony Khan issue. I think after they already kind of fucked it up, I think he's like, "Come on, guys, we just kind of we kind of screwed the pooch here with Punk." So he's probably, that's probably the problem.
Money, would you really care that they sent you a text? I don't know. I think it was more at the fact at that point of his life, or he
not
wasn't
true.
really
True.
focused on getting back into wrestling. I mean, he'll be a big draw. I mean, right away. Interesting to see how he is in the ring. I mean, people love CM Punk, so even if he came and sucked the bag, people would still go crazy. And it's good for them because I mean, I don't know how much they're paying the guy if he gets there, but I think any kind of payment to him, if he's on the show with Daniel Bryan, they'll crack $1 million every week. So
you think so?
Easily. I think the two of the biggest free agents in the last 10 years, both coming off WWE, especially Punk hasn't wrestled in 7 years. So, I mean, he got that UFC pay-per-view was on, was huge his first fight, and guy was like an amateur. So, let alone put him in a wrestling ring. I mean, I think it's a big get for them. There's no negative. I think there's no real like
con to it.
Yeah, no con, pun intended. If they sign either guy, I mean, Bryan, I just hope he doesn't get injured. I mean, definitely have when he came out with the whole concussion stuff, that stuff does bother you a little bit just because I feel like they do wrestle a little more aggressive style in AEW, and I've seen plenty of people get dropped on their head. So hopefully he's safe and everything goes well with him, doesn't rehash any injury issues. And for Punk, I mean, they cut the check and you want to go back to wrestling, it's the perfect opportunity. So no con to sign either of these guys. I think it could only be positive and interesting to see what happens.
Do you think AEW is probably the best landing spot for the both of them? I mean, I know obviously it's not the biggest platform, WWE is, but with Daniel Bryan, though, he got banned from SmackDown was the storyline. Could they work around it? I guess, but the thing with Bryan at this point, from what I've heard, speaking to him myself, all this other shit, he wants a reduced schedule, and he wants fresh opponents. He was going off to me about wanting to fucking wrestle Okada and Jungle Boy and Darby Allin and all these other people while he was with WWE, which is amazing. But, like, I got to imagine that he would love that reduced schedule in AEW, the flexibility to go over in Japan, and make the same amount of money or close to it in AEW that he was in WWE. Like, Ring of Honor is not going to provide that, or Impact, or even New Japan itself. So I think him going to AEW is probably the best landing spot. And for Punk, too, I think him going back to WWE would be cool, but, you know, I'm a mark of every company, but with Punk specifically, the problem, I think, is that if he went back to WWE, and he said this himself, too, what's the biggest match you could do with CM Punk? Probably him and Roman Reigns with the Paul Heyman connection. The problem there is that once that rivalry runs its course, what the fuck do you do with the guy? Like, does he go back to the Raw mid-card feuding with Sheamus? Like, he's not interested in that at this point. I think in AEW, it's a lot more exciting possibilities. I don't really want to see him and Jericho for the upteenth time. But the rest of the roster, I think, would be great, and I think he would go there only if it made sense and if it was the right amount of money. So AEW's got to be the best landing spot of all these companies, right, for these two guys, you think?
I mean, for what Bryan wants, I think, easily. If he wants to reduce schedule, wants to wrestle new guys, I think he'll have more control than he does with the WWE, so definitely. Punk, I mean, I get it, it'd be fresh matches, but, I mean, right now, the best guy in the business is Roman Reigns, so if he came back and wrestled Roman and against, like, the promos with him and Heyman, I mean, they'd be amazing. Like you said, he probably would have way less freedom and less control, so be interesting to see what happens. But if you're going by wrestling status, I would rather go face Roman Reigns. But like you said, once he's done with Roman, what do you really do with him from there?
I mean, there's a lot you could do with him technically, but it's like at the same time, would he really want to be doing that? Like, would he be feuding with an upper mid-carder? Like he fucking hates AJ Styles, I'm pretty sure, so I don't think we would ever see that matchup. But, like, the rest of the roster, WWE is a great roster, and they still do, even with all the departures, but it's like, I don't know, no one really makes as much sense as compared to whether he went to AEW, and there's a lot of fresh faces over there that he could face. Like, again, I think either one of these guys against Omega, whether he's champion or not, is a money match. What matches, let's start with Daniel Bryan, would you want to see with him in AEW?
I mean, any of the guys you listed, him and Darby, him and Cody would be pretty cool. I mean, they were kind of in the same company for a little bit at the same time, but I think they were both babyface. I know Stardust was in that WrestleMania ladder match that Bryan won, but then Bryan was hurt also a little bit too. So him and Cody would be pretty cool. I think they'd have a really good wrestling match. Him and Hangman. I mean, I think the possibilities are endless. Omega, I think, will be a big draw, even though I'm not the biggest Omega guy. I mean, I just think you put him with anyone, they'll draw just because how he's been touted and highly acclaimed. So, trying to think who else. Darby would be pretty cool. Hopefully he's not wrestling like Matt Hardy or like Chris Jericho again. Like, move on from that. So
I think that was the biggest issue with the Cage and Matt Hardy match last week. It was good, like we talked about. I mean, you didn't really watch it, but like I didn't see Christian. I don't want to see Christian in AEW to be reliving the same feuds that he's had for 20 years now.
I did watch it. I went back and watched it. It was a good match.
Okay.
But like I said, at the end of the day, it's Christian and Matt Hardy in 2021. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think all the people that you mentioned would make for good matches. What about CM Punk? I mean, obviously Roman Reigns in WWE, but in AEW, I think there's a lot more matches you could do, and you could have Omega tout that he's the best in the world, and fucking Punk comes out. Beyond that, any other matches really stand out to you? I think him and MJF, if Punk's a babyface when he first shows up, is a fucking money match, specifically from a mic standpoint, too.
Yeah, that'd be a good match. Nothing is now that you said he's best in the world, I'm fearing that he's going to beat Hangman, and then Punk will come out. Don't say that.
I don't like. We talked about this before we went live here, but I don't think they would do that because I don't think they would be like, oh, fuck our homegrown guys, let's bring in the ex-WWE guys. You can't. I'm fine with them bringing in the ex-WWE guys if it makes sense at this point. Like, they signed so many people by this point. They have a lot of ex-WWE guys, but where else are you going to sign talent from, really? And all these other promotions have talent, but it's like WWE has the most talent. I don't think they would do that. But where do you think, or how do you think they should debut and when? I mean, it's late July as we speak right now. They're not going to show up on the same episode of Dynamite. You want to save the surprises for later on down the road, too. How much later do you debut them? How do you debut them in the company?
I feel like Punk, it just makes sense to do it all out. I mean, it's in his hometown.
As a surprise, too, right? You think?
Oh, yeah. I think, like, even if Hangman wins, then you can have, like, the big celebration and Punk, and, like, you can just have Punk come out and, like, it just, like, end like that. No need for, like, a schmoz or anything. But you could have Hangman win, big moment, and then see a Punk come out. Or you could have someone run their mouth in the middle of the show and Punk comes out if you're not going to thrust him right in or want to ruin kind of take away from Hangman's big win. So I would do it there. Bryan, I mean, it's not like there's anywhere specifically. I keep hearing like that Grand Slam show at Arthur Ashe. So
yeah, I've heard that too.
I think that makes the most sense for him, but I think Punk, I mean, in Chicago makes the most sense.
With Bryan, Punk at this point, they've already sold out All Out. So there's no point in advertising it. I guess if they want more pay-per-view buys, you can. But, I don't know. If you create a compelling enough card to have like, oh, Punk will make his first appearance, I would just have it be a surprise. I know TNT doesn't like surprises. I don't know if I told you this, or if you heard this. But they wanted Sting's debut to be advertised. I guess TNT was fucking pissed that Sting came out as a surprise. Like, that's why with Christian, they were like, oh, we're having a big debut like this week, as opposed to him just showing up. Because they want those ratings for the show. I don't know. I think it's cooler when you get the surprises and it gives you the feeling that anything can happen. A lot like last night when friggin' Nick Gage and Chavo Guerrero showed up. It makes me want to watch the show live that much more. With Bryan, though, I don't know if that show is sold out. I know it's selling well for Arthur Ashe Stadium. Do you advertise it in advance, or do you let it be a surprise for that New York City show?
I would have it a surprise, but I kind of get what TNT wants it to be announced because they want a bigger rating.
Yep.
I get it from their side, but like, I'd rather be a surprise than find out before. Like, yeah, it's exciting, but if like you already know he's going to be there, it's not as exciting. Like, imagine if in 2003, when Goldberg came out, they advertised it before. Oh, Goldberg's going to be here tonight. People would go nuts. But like the way they had set up, it was amazing. If you had already said it was going to become, yeah, it's great, but let it be organic and let people like go crazy because that's what wrestling fans want.
I honestly hate to break your heart here, but I'm pretty sure they advertised that in advance.
I was a little child and didn't see it.
I'm almost positive because I remember watching Mania 19 and seeing a vignette for Goldberg. I'm like, why the fuck would you advertise? I mean, you'd have to go back on Peacock and rewatch it. I'm not 100% sure. And I just rewatched the debut this morning. It's funny you mentioned that because WWE put up a video about it. But yeah, no, I think they did advertise in advance. How about this? What about Brock Lesnar? They didn't advertise that. There were rumors that he could be there on Raw, but that reaction is still one of the greatest return pops of all time from 2012.
Yeah, that Mini Marceau was not there, so I didn't have to, but I'll still go that they didn't debut it. But no, that one was good. I mean, Lesnar coming back at WrestleMania, like you said, it was like teased, but it like wasn't. So I'll give it to you. But the Goldberg one for me sticks out like well above the rest. I mean, I remember as being a little kid, I went fucking crazy, and I had no idea who he was.
And now Ira Goldberg is back for another SummerSlam match with Bobby Lashley this year.
Can't wait.
We'll get into that a little bit later. No, they're two big signings. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. With Bryan, I would have it be a surprise, but we'll see. One last question on this front. What do you have their music be? Do you think they'll shell out the rights for Final Countdown and Cult of Personality? Do you have Punk use a different song? I know he used something else in Ring of Honor that people are kind of like, oh, maybe he'll use this instead. What do you think their music will be? Will they create something of their own for these two guys?
I mean, Punk has to be Cult of Personality. I mean,
yeah, I think so too. It has to be.
It has to be. It's peanut butter and jelly. Like, that's like, you do anything else, it'd be pretty stupid. Bryan, I mean, I don't really know. I don't really care what his music is. Punk, it has to be Cult of Personality. I'm just saying that now.
I think Bryan with Final Countdown would be awesome.
Like, it's the final count.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good song. I don't know. Like, did he use that like back in the day? I don't know.
He used it back in Ring of Honor. I don't know. You could use Flight of the Valkyries, but I just don't know if that. I don't know. It's in the free domain, so they could use it if they want to, but I'm just not a big fan of it.
I don't honestly really like his stuff.
No, Final Countdown would be cool. We'll see. I don't think they will use Final Countdown. Time will tell. But we'll see. Cult of Personality is definitely a given, though. They got to use Cult of Personality. Like I said, they could use his old Ring of Honor theme, and he used Cult of Personality in Ring of Honor. But before that, he had a different song that I've seen people tweet about in the last day. It's not going to be as recognizable. I'm not saying I'm the world, but like I won't know it. A lot of the casual viewers that didn't watch his Ring of Honor, stuff 15 years ago, probably wouldn't know it. I don't know. I think just hearing the opening beats of Cult of Personality at fucking All Out would create the biggest pop, as opposed to who is this? Who is this? Oh, it's CM Punk. You know what I mean? Like I think they're just like you said. It's peanut butter and jelly at this point. So I would just have them come out to that music personally.